So we're just gonna get going because, as they say, I talk a lot. Ah, man. Okay. All right. Good morning. All right. So most of us know this as Black History Month, right? Uh, I am. This is my interpretation of it all. So I'm going to change that really to African History Month, right? Because one can't happen without the other one, right? That's like peanut butter and jelly, and you have no bread, right? So at some point, somebody is trying to segregate your information right now, because we say African, Black History Month, but it should be African History Month because we all have some connections to Africa, believe it or not, right? A lot of this stuff is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Lots of people already been through all the research and all that stuff. You just need to know where to look to get all this information, right? So for me, I've always thought I had to defend myself always. You know, I was born on an island where it's 12 miles long by 7 miles wide, right? Little small place, lots of people, right? That's from here to across town. Can't go 50 because it's an island, right? So I was brought up in that little place, and sometimes I don't even know if I was black back then because we never really talked about anything like that, right? Because when I looked, everybody was black, and there were some who were, I call them Caucasian now. Back then I said they were white, but when they opened their mouth, they talked like me. So it was like, oh, so we're all that. And you can say I'm not black, I'm brown, which means I'm integrated with something different else, right? So sometimes it's hard for me to talk about black history when I'm much more than that, right? But that's how I start. So I'm just going to how I got to where I am right now. Because again, I always have to prove to others. Yes.
What was the name of the island?
Barbados.
Barbados.
I was born in Barbados.
Okay.
Yep. Small world. I just met somebody who said their dad was in the service and they lived there as an engineer for a couple of years. Small world. Right? And so I always felt like I have to prove myself. Even now, even right now, even though I don't have to prove myself, I feel like I have to. Right? Just because this is the way I am. And so I'm just going to give you my story all up until right now. And I wanted to give a lecture, right? And the person said, it can't be spiritual and it needs to be based on fact, right? And that sent me in a turmoil for a little while. I'm over it now, but fact. And then it got to me, what facts are you talking about? What, your facts or my facts or whatever the truth is, right? Because already in her mind, she has the truth in her mind and what I'm supposed to talk about already, even before I even start. It has to match this criteria here. And if I want to speak to you, I want to be able to speak to you. No barriers, no boundaries, nothing, right? So I'm bringing out some facts, right? And my family has we have lots of teachers, right? Teachers in Barbados, my cousins, we're like all teachers. To me, we're all shamans. So, and my uncle, he was the first spiritual person I know. I didn't know it back then, but he was a yogi. They did yoga all the time, and we would as kids we would watch through the window. And they would be bending and twisting and passing gas, and we'd be laughing and all that kind of stuff, right? That was my introduction. And then he was a yogi, and then another friend, Jeff Kent, they used to do yoga. So that was my introduction to what we call spiritualism or spirit or spirituality or whatever it is. But we were Methodists back then. We went to church 3-4 times a week, never felt included into it. It was just, you have to go, otherwise we're going to whoop your butt, right? So I went. Turned out, as I look back, that wasn't a bad thing. Back then, I got to know that story. I got to learn to read and comprehend and recite, even though I didn't see myself included in the story. That's why I said I didn't feel like I was, African. On the walls of the church and everybody's houses, we had the Last Supper, and we had Jesus's pictures. They were all white, right? Not good or bad. That's just what it was, right? And so I left Barbados when I was 16 years old. We had aunts over here that were Caucasian, right? So that's why I can't speak anything negative about me, right? So without them, we would never be here. I would never be here. You would never met me, right? So I have to give thanks for all of that, right? On both sides, right? So, I got here, and I really didn't know about racism until I came here. Even though it was going on there, I didn't know about it till I came here. And Chris Rock said, who's more racist, white people or black people? And he said, black people, because we hate black people too. Right? It's like, it was heavy for me. It's like, oh, it makes perfect sense. But really, that's the whole game, the whole plan, to make you fight, make us fight, and not look up and see how great we are and all that kind of stuff. All the plan deal. So my first experience with racism was in high school. We came from Barbados. It was 1974, right? And we're in school, and it's an all-black school, except for a few colors here and there. And we were called. We were say y'all just came up from the banana boat. That's what they called. Y'all just get off the banana boat, right? Y'all are here taking all our jobs, and these were black kids. So my first experience with racism was from somebody who was, I thought, oh, we're all the same, right? So culture shock, needless to say, on one level there. And then the other level was, I left a wonderful place. Now I know it's wonderful. You don't miss it till you're gone. You can see the beach. We could see the beach from our bedroom window. The skyline was the ocean, right? And we left there, and we were dropped in the middle of Brooklyn, New York, right? You ever heard of Bedford-Stuy? You hear Jay-Z and Biggie and all the gang life? Right in the middle of that. Culture shock number 2. Right? So so that's how I got introduced to this racism thing. Right? So I started lots of studies. Some of my role models I'll go through really quick. There are many of them. Because everybody wants to talk about Martin Luther King. We all know him, and a whole lot of other ones, right? Jesse Jackson, But I want us to talk about some of the ones that came before them, right? Because back on the island, we were, when they did the slave trade, they would come through and they would drop us off, and they would stop in the islands first, right? And then they would try to break you there. And then if they broke you, you got on a ship and you came up to the States, right? And so back then on these islands, there were some people that broke away. We're not having it. Those were called the Maroons, right? And so Marcus Garvey comes out of that line of people. If you want to talk about Martin Luther King, you should know something about Marcus Garvey. Marcus Messiah Garvey. He was talking about, a civilization or a country without its roots. You're going to repeat the same thing over and over, right? So so Marcus Garvey, I learned about that in school. It got me a little close to where I am now, in that there was some identity. I can identify with something greater than me, right? Not on this little island. Marcus Garvey, well read and written and stuff. And so that was a good thing. The other one that was important back then to me is Bob Marley, right? Because of him, I found my identity. Like he wasn't Marcus Garvey. He was somebody who was alive, and I could see, and who was saying things, and people were listening to, right? So I got even more identity, more black identity or me identity, right? No matter what people think of him, he smoked whatever. That's how I got my identity. That's how I am who I am right now, just because of it was pure. It was natural. The living was, and he was doing what he wanted to do, bar none, no matter what, as he called it, up class said. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm living, right? Now we know where that went, right? Great man. And people will look, if you go back and grab some of the words of some of those songs and look, there's spirit in those words if you can read it. Just reread it and just listen. He's talking about light. He's talking about all different kinds of great things now. We call it New Age stuff. Back then he was just singing from inside, right? So good person, good man, good family. So those are some role models that got me to where I am here. At that point, then I had to try to find out, coming up with the racism thing. It was racism, and I was in the Air Force. There's racism in the Air Force. Kids just come in. We were in tech school in Illinois. Almost had a fight with this big old guy. Don't even know what it was about. We never got to that point, but it was just tension. Like, you go black, what you doing? This, you can't do this. On. It was everywhere, right? I was in the Air Force. It was everywhere. I was in the Philippines, right? I was started in Blackland. I went to Abilene, lived in Abilene for a while, West Texas. Don't say too much about that, really. Right? I got pulled over. Got my hands on my car, and he was like, "Stand up straight." This Caucasian guy. I was just ran a light, right? So it was everywhere. I left there. I went to the Philippines. And it's there too. I had no idea, right? We're in the Philippines. Most people are brown. It was like home to me. Nice climate, fruit trees. It was always warm and stuff. Unless you go up into the mountains in the Baguio, it was a little bit cold. And but the way it presented itself to me in the Philippines was, you would go out the front gate, and there would be stores, and you could go shop, and bars, and you can drink and have fun and all kinds of stuff. On the back gate, nobody ever hardly went that way. They were what they called the Negritos. Those were the black Filipinos, Negritos. And so, they cut my grass, of course, and they made these great weapons. I still have some that they made. But that's how it presented it to me. It's like, so this thing is everywhere. Not just here. It's everywhere you go. Right? It's everywhere you go. So just don't think it's just here. So to me, that's something systematic. Just shows people need to know. My sons need to know. This is systematic. Right? And it's been going on for a long time. Right? And so I'll tell you where I start with some of these books, just because somebody asked me for, what's your proof? Like, I stand up here and I'm standing on the shoulders of many great people. My mother, my father, all these people that have taught me through all these years. I'll be 62 this year. Lots of studying, 30 years of conscious studying, spirituality, and a few years unconscious just because I wanted to read and stuff. Right? And so, if you want facts, or you want to come and talk to me about African history or African American history, there's some books I think you should have in your library. If you don't have them, then you need to read them before we can have a good conversation where we both can learn something, right? They know who I'm talking about. So the first one is what they never told you in history class. Right? Lots of things they didn't tell us in history class, right? And sometimes it's not because they didn't know, but because nobody told them. And the teacher that told them, nobody told them, right? So as I go back, I'm not at fault. I'm not faulting those people at all, right? But they didn't tell us a lot of things. In school, I finished high school in Brooklyn, and a lot of things I had no idea about as far as Africa and history. And sometimes it's like, where's Africa? You don't even know where it is back then, right? All this stuff should be taught to everybody because everybody has a hand in that. If you go far back, this dispensation of time started way back then when there was just one person, one energy, and then it just manifested in different colors, right? We spread it here. You don't have a lot of sun, so your skin gets light. Like if I'm home in Barbados, I'm not this color. I am dark, like I got a real tan, right? And then on the other side, if I stay too long, I get burnt. Right? So a lot of things they didn't tell us in history class. It's almost like they stopped right before Jesus. Or they stop right before slavery. They want you to start at slavery and move forward. I'm talking to a few people away from here, so, no disrespect at all. Right? It's almost like we want you to know this part. We want you to know that you were slaves, and we brought you over here, and we built this great country, but they don't want you to know that your forefathers were kings and queens and owned, some of them even owned slaves as well. Mm-hmm. Not saying it's good or bad or not, right? So we need to, if we're going to talk about Black History Month, we got to talk about some real Black history, right? That's where I'm coming in because I've been studying this stuff for a long time. And Black history goes back to Jesus. They say he was brown or whatever it was. Doesn't matter, right? Where did he go? What was the 30 years they didn't know where he was? Did he just disappear? Was he kidnapped? Where was he at? They don't tell us about that in history class. He went to Egypt, which were dark-skinned people, to study with the pharaohs and in the mystery schools. And he also was in India. What do they do in India? Lots of yoga, meditation, all kinds of spiritual practices. They don't tell us none of that. All they want to say is, he finally showed up one day and he could do all these wonderful things and heal all these wonderful people. Right? Come on, man. That's the used to say, come on, man. That's be the name of this lecture. Come on, man. Really, that's not the way it really went, right? So we just want to open everybody's eyes to all these things. All these different people, whether they're dark or not, they have certain technology and they could do certain things that we believe we can't do right now. Right? Mm-hmm. So we need to start going back if we're going to talk about Black history. We need to go back and expose our kids. Really, I'm doing this for my sons and my grandkids. Right? And of course that includes, if it's me, I have an extended family, my wife, my previous wife, her kids, and their kids, right? And y'all are just getting some of the juices from it, ran over stuff. So I'm selfish in this way, right? I'm supposed to, I always say this, I'm supposed to record this for my mother when she passed away before I could. So the deal was my kids got to know this stuff, right? Now, as long as you know that there is racism, bless you, then you understand what's going on, right? Things that didn't teach you in history class. Lot more. The next one is just specific to victims of racism. This one is called the United Independent compensatory code system concept, right? It's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or actions for victims of racism. I went through this whole thing times, right? So you have to understand that it is there. Long as you know it's there, you know how to work with it, right? I'll leave the books up here so you can take pictures of them, okay? You're not going to find this in the library more than likely, right? Some of these are, I already did it myself, 20 years old, 30 years old, right? All these things our kids need to know. Not just my kids, everybody's kids. Because you need to know about me, I need to know about you. And then we won't be fighting. Because we're all different, but we all have something to share. Right? Don't come talk black to me unless you ready to, let's dive into that one. Right? This one is, after, once I started moving into Africa and Egypt, then things started like, I could see myself as, oh yeah, I'm African, or I'm Egyptian, or I know this, have this knowledge, or access to this knowledge, all that kind of stuff, right? We have to start at Egypt and go backwards. If you want to know real history, that's where you start and go backwards, not what they present to you, right? Because what they present to you, the conqueror presents to you his story, not your story, right? That's like when the guy went to Alexander. He went to Egypt, and what they do, shoot off all the noses of all the statues in all the pyramids and stuff. Shoot off all the noses, right? So they were trying to hide something from you. All that made me do is go look further. Love this book because I love the Bible, right? I was brought up on the Bible, but again, when I was going through the Bible, as I said earlier in the church, it was filtered. I didn't feel like I had any part in it. You were just telling me a story, right? But once I got into stuff like this one is called God, the Bible, and the Black Man's Destiny. And this is by Reverend Ishakamusa Barashango. This should be in class. The kids should be learning this stuff. Then they're going to start learning about pyramids and how to build things that we can't even build yet. They already know, we just don't expose them to it. We just say, here, read this, and that's all you're going to read. God bless my brother-in-law, I love him. He says, I don't believe anything from Genesis to Revelation. Which is fine. If that's where you are going to go, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. For me, I just have lots more, the world is bigger than that, right? And I don't want you to tell me stuff. I want to go, you tell me, I'm going to go look it up, see what I can find, and then I'm going to make my own decision about it. That's what you need to do. As I'm talking to you, don't just take every word I say for granted. I like that book. Let me go check it out. What was the name of that guy? Let me go research it. For you youngsters, which is all of you, you can go to YouTube and look it up. Or go to, what's the other one? Google something? What is it? You go search it. You can go online and search it, right? And it comes to say, oh, here's all these results. We didn't have that. We had to go read and go to school and learn in classes and conference and stuff. Really good book. If you're African American and you don't know about this, here you go. Right? This will tell you about your life and your life before slavery, and all that kind of stuff. Egypt, you got to go there. Everybody talked about yoga and all that stuff. Egyptian yoga, the philosophy of enlightenment. Right? Because all we heard of yoga, and most of the time it's in India or, further east. Right? All that was in Egypt as well. So you already know all that stuff. Right? Again, all I'm doing here is just reminding you of stuff you already know. Right? And again, when I say African history, I'm inclusive. Whether you're black, white, red, green, whatever it is, I'm inclusive of everybody. So this isn't just for black people, this is for all people. Because it's spiritual work. It's just not for black people. It's for all people. Right? I went through all these books, so I learned who I was really. Right? I'm black, I'm African, I got Caucasian roots, I have Indian roots, right? We call them the Arawak or the Taino Indians, right? And so I learned that, okay, this is me, I'm this. And then it was a realization that that's not it, that's not everything. I'm strong, I got books on Malcolm X. People don't like him, love him. Minister Farrakhan, people don't like him, love him. Because when I was coming up and I needed some direction, I got that direction. So people that don't like him, that's okay. That's okay too. I love them, man. That's why I stand here. And if I tell you stuff, those are the shoulders I'm standing on. All those people. Right? And so I got my blackness going. And then I realized, I started doing healing work. And I just realized, I want to heal more than black people. Because I am more than black people. Me. Right? And then the search went on to more spiritual things that got me to where I am right now. Right? I see all these things. I brought a whole box. Blacks Who Died for Jesus. You ever heard of that one? No. We should be all hearing about these books. School should be hearing about these books, right? There's a couple of books that I like. I'll just talk about these real quick. Malcolm X Speaks, 14 great speeches. Even if it's just for the oratory or something, go listen to what he was saying, right? Some of those things were hardcore. Some are happening right now that they talked about back then. They're still happening, right? This one here is 7 speeches by Minister Louis Farrakhan. You don't have to like him. Read the information, see what you can get from it, right? Some people are hardcore because they have to be, because there's a whole bunch of black people had no idea about anything. They just think they're slaves. And so when these men speak, that's who they're speaking to. And if you're on the outside, it will feel different for you, which is not good or bad, right? I don't hate anybody, right? Even Adolf Hitler, I don't hate that man. Because he brought things here nobody even knows about yet, or we don't even think about, right? The Holocaust and all that, of course, negative. But when I go back there, I want to bring something forward about learning, right? Once that war was over, where did those scientists go that were dealing with anti-gravity craft and the Glocke, the bell? Because Hitler was doing all this stuff during the war. Where did those scientists go? Anybody knows?
Yes. Here.
They came to the States. I forgot what they called that whole movement. But they got all those scientists here. That's how we got off this planet and went to the moon. Supposedly went to the moon. Because, I don't even like to call the names, because the German scientist, he was good at the rocketeering and being able to push off. That's how we got to the moon, because of the help of Nazi Germany, right? I go back and I bring something forward that's positive for me, because I got to love everybody. I don't care who you are. I got to love you. I got to find something. If I want to live my life, like I said, I want to live my life, I got to find something good about you. I don't care who you are. Even if it's, I'll never do that. Thank you for letting me show me that. Right? And so, okay, I'm running my mouth. Am I talking too long? Okay, I'm going to close in a minute. Because it's African History Month. I've never done this before, because I'm always controlled about what I say about certain things. African History Month? I'm sorry. I'm letting it flow, so bear with me. And so I wanted to stop with... where I am right now, and things that you should have in your mind. One other teacher that you should know about, and I call these teachers whether I read your books or whether I go and I work with you directly, right? You're my teacher, right? Anybody ever heard of Osho? Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Osho? I asked this question before. Have you ever heard of Osho? And the guy was like, "Is that the guy that had 20 Cadillacs?" He said nothing about the spiritual work of this man at all. So I think the book is here, and this is not all of it, right? He also said, "Is that the guy that his people poison the people in the little town, whether it's true or not?" That was the narrative they pushed out. Nobody's talking about how good everybody felt when they were in his presence and they were dancing and he was giving lectures. You know, look it up. OSHO, Osho, or Bhagwan Rajneesh. Some of his books now, I loaned some of them out thinking I could change people. I think the book back then, it's the Rajneesh Bible, 1, 2, and 3. They cost like maybe $20. They're like $500 a piece right now, right? Because if you notice, we're all going back to the things we call crazy. The Native Americans, their practices, y'all the devils and the worshipers, what are we doing now? We're going into sweat lodges. We're calling up shamans. We call them different names. The psychic reader, we're going to shamans. The same thing we said was devilish. That's what we're doing now, right? So there's something positive about those things that people are suppressing. Somebody wants to suppress and don't want you to know about, right? They're never going to tell you. You just got to go out and find it for yourself, you know? And as far as spirituality goes, you don't even have to really go anywhere. If you can sit in meditation and relax and let go of the house, the car, even the kids, you know, what I'm going to take next, what I'm going to do next, and just relax and breathe, you have access to everything. That's the spiritual part nobody wants to talk about. You have access to everything. Egyptians knew it long ago, right? More stuff is coming out as time goes by. You know, but I just want us to push your history way back. Again, before slavery. Because if we say, I love Jesus, I want to know, how did you get that way, Jesus? Show me how you got that way. Not, I'm going to follow you whatever you say. I don't think that's what he wanted. I think he was saying, if I can do this, you can do this, and a lot more. That's what he was saying. He didn't say, be a Christian, because Christianity didn't exist back then. Right? So let's try to find a way backwards. Can we go back? What was you doing before Jesus? Was you hanging out at the club? What were you doing? I want to know that, because I want to be like you. That's what we should be saying. And then it will take us back to Egypt, where he went and studied. And then it will take you back to things like the Essenes. Heard of them? That's where he used to go and study. He was part of that group, right? And they had a belief about off-planet stuff. I'm not going to go into that too much today. But our history goes back so far, they don't even want us to know, right? I'm going to stop because I'm just going to leave you where I am these days. As far as spirituality goes, I'm always studying. You know, I have a French book. That's you show you how crazy I am about knowledge and studying. I'm 62, right?
Right.
This is my French book from school in Barbados. Right?
Wow.
50-something years old or something. Right? And the teacher was influential. And before I came to the States, I was 16. We knew French, Spanish, Latin. Right? So there was something about knowledge that, you know, it's born in me. Right? So I'm thankful for all the things and all the people that came in and out, all the teachers that came in and out, the ones I didn't like. I thank you more, because when you said stuff I didn't like, I went out and looked. Right? So I'm like, thank you for saying that stuff because it took me a certain way. And again, and they told me this morning, when the door closes, it just points you in another direction or the right direction. When the door closes, it just points you a different way. Not that, man, they closed that door. When is that door going to open? And you're missing all the gracious things that went by. Bob Marley said something like that too, you know. So today, this is where I'm at these days as far as spirituality goes. If, you know, I can go back as far as 250,000 years from right now, as far as knowledge goes. Right? There is more. I'm not privy to that level of information right now, but I can take you back from right now to 250,000 years ago. Well, you know, when it was something called the fall, or, you know, or whatever they want to call it, because they don't want you to know the truth, right? The rebellion or whatever it is, and I want you to know all the truth about it, right? You got angels and wings all around you all the time. Nobody can take them from you unless you believe what they say that you don't have them, right? You're just some little puny human being, right? These are the greatest books I have right now, not denoting any of the other ones. This one is called the Urantia book, right? You can grab some, but y'all need to grab this book, right? Because this, if you want to know about what happened before the pyramids and how they were built, then these are some of the information you need to do. This book has a whole chapter on Jesus. Not just a little bit, right? A whole, a quarter of the book is about Jesus. And so, to me, this information is before Jesus was around. Like, how did you get to be what you are, Jesus? Let's go back and look at all these things, right? The Urantia book. This one here is called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch. Right? We all should have this. We all should have one of these. Right? If you can see it, it's probably backwards. Right? Because this book talks about the spirituality and it talked like if it was one. There's no difference between being spiritual and almost like medicine. It's all the same. It's just not one. It's just not two things. This is spirit, and this is your life, right? It's one thing, and one thing only, and that's what we need to focus on. Don't let people divide you into this and that. And once the first division, they call it the law of one. There's another series you need to have just for reference. And this was out, I think this came out in the 80s or so. It's that old. Some people never heard of it before, right? But this goes back into fixing yourself at the core level, right? Or not really fixing yourself, because there's nothing to fix. Just reminders of what is. Because you already know all this stuff, right? It's just reminders of what is. That's all it is. Right? So the last thing I'm going to say is you're just like an onion. We were born, that's why when your daughter came in, we were all born pure with everything we need to get everything we want. We're born with it. You don't need anything outside yourself. Right? The kids need some guidance because we want them to do things and we want them to make mistakes and we want to be there so we can explain this is how that got to be. We don't want to stop them from going outside, stop them from talking to people, and keep them in a little hole. And then here you go into life and expect them to swim. Right? We want them to know this information about us, about them. So, again, in closing, it's like an onion. We're born, we're pure, and then people start piling stuff upon us, quote unquote. Want to believe who you are, this is how you do things, those people are no good, and they pile stuff up, and then we believe it because that's our first relationships, right? And so all I do as a shaman, as a healer, as a lecturer, as a dude, I'm just here to tear down some of this stuff that they taught me and they taught you too, right? And you don't have to go and buy all these books, but you do have to do some research if you're interested in why did I get mad? Did I get mad at this event right here? Or did I get mad at the event that happened 10 years ago? And I didn't deal with it. And now here it is presenting itself to you again. And any event in your life is just comes up so you can fix it. That's all they do. That's all events do. That's all negative experience do. They just pop up so it's like this is something in your luggage that you need to toss out. That's all it's saying. That's all it's saying. It's nothing heavy. And then once you start looking at them, we call them ghosts in shamanism. Once you start looking at all these issues and realize that really wasn't an issue, you're through it already. Right? All right, I was going to stop. The last thing they said to me this morning was, life is like a hurdle. You either hop over it or you run it over. And keep going. That's what they told me this morning. So I'm going to leave that with you guys. Okay. I'm hungry now. Okay. All right. So any questions? I'll take questions right now because I'm in the flow right now. Any question about anything right now anybody has? Yes.
Where do you get all your information about Jesus? I've never heard that before.
Okay, so, and the question was, where did I get my information about Jesus?
Yeah, because all they had was like in the Bible, and the
Right.
Bible's like that much, and
Right.
it's hard to actually see him as a real person.
Right. So there's lots of books about Jesus. There's okay. Dolores Cannon. She wrote lots of books about people who were with Jesus. I forgot the name of it. There's lots of people who write about Jesus, right? You can also look up books about Mary Magdalene. Not Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, because she was cohort to Jesus and they were in the same clique, mystery school, stuff like that. There's also a book, The Lost Books of the Bible. And the book of Adam and Eve, but the Lost Books of the Bible has lots of information they took out of the regular Bible because it didn't suit what they wanted. It's as thick as the Bible.
The Apocrypha.
Yeah, that's the name for some of the books there. Because there's the book of Adam and Eve, there's the Odes of Solomon, and when I started reading them, it's like, this sounds just like the Bible. Oh. And so that was the Council of Nicaea, when the popes decided, this is it. We're going to split the Bible. This is what we're going to push forward, and this is what we're kicking out. Right. So the lost years of Jesus is another book. That's a thick one, just about what he was doing, where he was going, that kind of stuff.
Yoo-hoo.
That means move on. Okay. Is that all the questions right now? And we can talk about this more if you want.
Yeah.
More in depth.
Well, I also wanted to know the connection between Egypt and like Africa. Like, how does that relate to history?
So Egypt is in Africa.
Oh, it is in Africa.
Yeah. So it's just on the north. But Africa is a big, huge place.
Over by the Black Sea.
So Egypt is up there by the Nile and all that. All that's part of Egypt. That tie that together for you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is just stuff that they just separated for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but the information is out there on both sides. Yes, ma'am.
They didn't separate it, they just spoke it, and people believed it. What was Africa called before it was settled to be Africa? Like America is not its original name.
Yeah, I know there was the land of Kem, Kem or Kemet. And so I know there's a couple of names, but yeah, before it was that, it was called the land of Kem.
Okay, and then the area where it's called Negro Land. Are you familiar
I've heard that term before.
On the ancient map.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that term before. There's a couple other places.
Because
Uh,
I like bits and pieces.
yeah.
I want to know, more personally
Yeah.
for me because
There are books about the Essenes. It's always good to go back to those books. There's books about Nubia. There's there's lots of stuff that was going on. The spice trade, all that was bringing information back and forth from Egypt and Africa and all that. I'm trying to remember this race that they started with Paula. They started with the little writings, Sumeria.
So the Samaritan.
Right. So all that is part of all this information, right? All that is all tied together, right? Even ties into, if you go back, it's going to tie you into Atlantis, and there was just not one Atlantis. It was Atlantis, and then that will tie you back to Lemuria, right? And we keep going back, and then you'll get back to Sumer. And so again, my knowledge is going to plateau there until I can repeat this as a story, and then they'll show me more. But I don't need to go that far back anymore. Okay?